Alright, hi guys, welcome back to the Python networking tutorial. In this video we're going to be creating the first part of the server application. So the files that we're going to need are a TCP listener, which will be the server class, and then we'll need a model class for the clients that are connected. So we're going to do a new file and then TCP listener.py. That's here, and then we will also, so this is what I was talking about in the last video. They want, this will be different for each one, so you'll have to keep resetting that. So I'm just going to select that, and it's saved there in VSCode. So yeah, that would just be, they would continuously ask you for that. But now that it is at the same location on each computer, it is static. So we're going to get back to the class, and then for the model, we're going to create a new file. We're going to call it TCP Client Model.py. Right? So I can actually just make no, not that. And there we go. All right. So the TCP listener class, you're going to want to import socket and threading. Right? And then you're also going to want to from TCP Client Model import TCP Client. This is going to be the name of the class. It's going to show as an error because we haven't created the class. So next we're just going to do class TCP listener. So the purpose of this class is to provide a template that other classes in real applications can inherit from. So we're going to be using a combination of callback methods that can be overridden, so you can stylize this class to fit your specific application needs. So let's just also do the same over here. So for the TCP clients, we just need to import socket, and no, we don't need to import socket. We actually don't need to import anything here. My bad. So we just create the class TCP client. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that you guys know what all this syntax is, but if you guys do want me to create a formal Python tutorial, I can completely do that. I'll just get working on that if that need arises. So in the TCP listener class, we're going to need a constructor. So def init, and we will take care of this other stuff later. We're going to want a method that can run, so we don't want to just start the server out of the constructor. So we need a def, or not private, it's going to be public. The way I'm going to structure this is I'm going to have multiple threads running in this class. So there's going to be an incoming communication thread, so that's going to be accepting. It's going to be accepting clients. So it's going to be a private method because this is the only class that needs it. Accept thread. The private is denoted by the 2 underscore characters. Pass. And then we will also need a client thread. So for each client that joins, we'll create a new thread for it that can receive communications from that specific client. And then we are also going to need a command thread. This will be an optional thing. cmd thread. This should be overridden. And I'll pass. And then there's going to be a function that is called get TCP client. So in some cases, the server's going to store a list of TCP client types right here. And what it's going to want to do is it's usually going to get make sure that's a colon, not a semicolon. It's going to get a socket from the incoming communication, so it's going to want to match that socket to a client in some cases. So that's what this method will do. We also want a method for assent. So def assent. Once again, we're going to be adding all the parameters in just a second. Then we're going to generate client object. So what this method is going to do is this TCP client model, it can also be inherited and specialized to each application. So I'm going to model this class, so you have to generate a client object of that specific type. So you can have special properties that this server will then be able to read. It'll all come together once we actually start writing code. And now we're just going to get into the callbacks. So there's going to be a server started. This is going to be called when the server, when the socket binds to the IP address and port. There's going to be a client connected, so there's also going to be a client disconnected callback. And then the last one is going to be a message received. So how many do we have? 3, 6, 9, I can't count. 6, 9, 12 methods, 12 methods in this class. And for the client model class, the only thing that we're going to have is just a constructor and a send method. So we'll just do that now. So def, nope. And then a send method. So yeah, we have created all these. Now we're going to add parameters. So the way I'm going to put this on GitHub is I'll add all the code in now, and then I will add documentation after the video. It's going to get a bit tedious if I talk about the same thing and then type it. So yeah, I'm going to add the code, and then I will add documentation once I finish the video, and that will all be uploaded to GitHub in one run. So in the constructor, what we're going to want to pass in is an IP address, a port, a maximum packet size, and if the server has commands. And that's going to be a default of false. So when we start actually programming, if this is set to true, then the server will actually run the command thread here. All right. In the run method takes no parameters, so that can just be left as self. The accept thread, there's also no parameters. The client thread will actually need a client. This is going to be of type TCP client or whatever inherits from it, and that class is going to have information about the client which the server can then read. And then the command thread takes no parameters. The get TCP client method, like I said, it's going to match a socket object to the TCP client that has that socket. So get TCP client self and then socket. No, use sock because socket is this name here, and that would cause a name error. In send, we're going to want to pass in a client, which will be a TCP client, the message itself, and then if you want to encode the message. So if the message is already in bytes, for example, if you're sending a file, you don't need to encode that into bytes, unless it's a text file. But if you're just sending a string message, such as JSON, that has been converted into a string, you're going to want to encode that before sending it. And then for generate a client object, we're gonna put in a client sock and a client address. And this will come all together over here. And then for the server started, there's no parameters. Client connected, we're gonna pass in the client, which is once again a TCP client. The client disconnected, that's going to also just get client. And then in the message received, it's going to be client and MSG. Alright, so that is the server methods. And then now, for the client methods, what we're going to do is this. So in the constructor, we're going to need to pass in the client sock and client address. So this method here, generate client object, it's going to just return a TCP client object with the client sock, a socket, and the client address. And then in the send, it's going to be practically the same as the server send method. It's just going to be self, packet size, message, and then do encode, which is automatically set to true. So when the send method is called here, it is going to call client.send. It's going to send in the packet size that you passed in the constructor, the message, and the do encode as a boolean. Alright, so that is the format of the server classes that we will use. The next video will be actually adding code to these classes. So yeah, I'll see you guys then.